Hello, Tim, and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pitts. It's Ukraine War News Update, first part thereof, for the 28th of August 2023. It's my twin's birthday today, and my partner has an older son as well, over 30, and he's born on this day as well. So she's had 3 out of 4 children born on the 28th of August. Anyway, birthday day, so it's going to affect my schedule for videos. I may not be able to get some videos out today. I'm going to try and get these 2 news ones out and then see how it goes. Anyway, just to let you know. Right. Let's go to where we normally start, the Ukrainian general staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before. We have a continuing trend here. Okay, 490 personnel. It's pretty much where it's been, give or take, over the past few months. 4 tanks. There's been a few days where the tank numbers have been higher, but this is about where we've seen it because I've been arguing that they just don't have too many tanks. They're not engaging them either. I don't think they're far more cautious because they don't have as many as they started this war with. Armored personnel vehicles, 8 of them lost. It's not as high as we have seen over the last few days, but still a significant hit there. And then 22 artillery systems. This is huge. Again, the question is, are they actually losing that number per day? We are seeing evidence of some of the losses. We don't see evidence of all of them, of course, because the Ukrainians aren't going to be interested in releasing 22 bits of camera footage, drone footage every day, just to say, and here's the evidence. So they'll release a couple of bits to social media, but generally most of that won't be filmed. I mean, some of those hits just won't be filmed at all. They're just not caught on camera. Some of those hits, most of them will, because they supposedly have a high, criteria for these numbers, as in you have to submit to bosses and you have to submit the evidence, and then that gets totted up and that goes up and up, so on and so forth. So it's not just they're not just pulling these out there posteriors apparently, but the question is, how accurate are these figures that we see on a daily basis? I don't know. I can't tell you. All I can say is that the trends, I'm sure, are fairly accurate. So the Ukrainians are certainly going to be aiming for artillery systems every single day, because these are the bane of both sides' lives, really. And if the Ukrainians are going to have successful attacks, they need to take out the main challenge to those attacks. Yes, minefields, but they can negotiate minefields if they aren't getting hit on the head by huge pieces of lead. So artillery systems are going to be your number 1 priority. 2 multiple launch rocket systems, and we have seen some video footage over the last few days of a number of sort of grads and whatnot being taken out. 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, again, that is significant. Even though it's only 1, they have lost less than 1 a day over the average of over the course of the war as an average. So 1 is still a good day, depending on what value system that is. 5 drones, 4 cruise missiles. That could be from last night, because they did shoot down 4 out of 6 cruise missiles. So it depends what time the cruise missiles are shot as to whether it gets onto this list or not. 12 vehicles and fuel tanks, a few of them we have seen, but still significant, and 1 piece of special equipment. So I guess a fairly average day, apart from artillery systems and multiple launch rocket systems still being a really consistently high number of stuff getting taken out. Right. Although this is from yesterday morning, referring to the previous sort of day or so, this is what Oryx has totted up as far as the losses for both sides. So 19 losses for the Russians and 10 losses for the Ukrainians. So the Russians are losing here. This is just an anecdotal snapshot, of course, but it's about a 2-to-1 ratio. A lot of APVs here. So your infantry fighting vehicles, MRAPs, and APCs and whatnot. A few tanks though as well. 5 tanks on the list. So out of 19, that's quite a high number of tanks. A few howitzers, multiple launch rocket system, and some trucks and whatnot, and then a drone in there. 2 larger drone, that is. And then the Ukrainian here, that Caesar I showed you yesterday, is on there. 2 L-39 aircraft from the crash in Zhytomyr. Huge. And then really just a few bits and pieces. The only thing in fact, 3 of these are drones. So actually, the losses of the Ukrainians here are not huge. Now, we know they'll be losing things around Robotna and Novopokrovka, where they are just doing some big offensives. So there will be a lot of equipment, I'm sure, that's been taken out by the Russians there. But again, the radar system being lost is usually something to worry about. But generally, better figures for the Ukrainians than for the Russians. And here, Andrew Perpetua, the map I rely on, he does his own totting up of video footage he watches. It's not quite so the database isn't going to be as cross-referenceable, I don't think, and open source as you see from Oryx, but he's a pretty he's an honest guy here, and his claims are pretty objective as far as you can be. He has, again, at least a 2-to-1 ratio here, mainly APVs, armored personnel vehicles, with with a few tanks as well, and a couple of bits of artillery, um, so on and so forth. So for the Ukrainians, a couple of drones. Really, I would take them out and move on to the other bits, and just not a lot of stuff there. Uh, the ratio does look to be in Ukraine's favour. Right, I talked about this briefly yesterday at the beginning of my map piece because it came out just after the news. This is a claim that 14 Russian soldiers were killed at night in their sleep in their barracks in Crimea due to kind of sabotage. New sabotage in Crimea. This is a Google translation of Russian source. 14 soldiers were killed right in the barracks. 14 soldiers were killed in one of the military units not far from Evpatoria. This was reported to us in the General Staff and the government of Crimea. I don't know if it's a Russian source, actually. According to them, the soldiers were killed in their sleep. Unknown saboteurs killed some of them with blows to the heart. Some of them had some of them cut their throats. How the criminals bypassed the guards. Yeah, this is a Russian source, and ended up in the barracks. No one can yet understand. So that is one of the big claims from yesterday that I think is significant because it shows there is partisan activity that is pretty meaningful, not just which is also important, but stuff like putting up posters and ribbons and whatnot. That's one end of it. That's psychological activity, and then you get sort of burning relay stations and the kind of small disruptions, and then you get up to things like blowing up bits of equipment, and in this case murdering 14 people in their barracks at night while they are asleep. And that is big stuff. So that will have a really significant psychological effect as well on Russians in Crimea. What else happened? This at pretty much the same time came out yesterday after I reported on a drone attack in Kursk. This is now doing the rounds. A total of 16 kamikaze drones reportedly worked against 4 Su-30s and 1 MiG-29. Additionally, S-300 complex radars and 2 Pantsir air defense systems were among the targets. It's claimed only 3 out of 16 of the drones were shot down, while the others managed to hit their targets. And this is because the Ukrainians were using the Australian cardboard drones. Now, these have the asymptotic cost exchange ratio of a cardboard drone to a 4th-generation Russian jet is the future for Western air power, says Trent Telenko, if the proper countermeasures are not taken. 6th-generation air dominance fighter will not be able to address this threat. I mean, you just can't really track these, not very easily. Yes, there'll be some metal and whatnot on the explosives and a few components, but as far as like tracking these by radar or whatever, these are difficult to acquire as targets, and therefore there's no surprise that a number of these got through. There's a lot of talk about this today. I don't actually know really what of these claims are true or not. There's a lot of people saying that 4 Su-30s and 1 MiG were taken out and whatever. I wouldn't go so far as to claim that. I just say that it appears that a bunch of these drones got through and probably caused some havoc. Who knows what the damage is? Just it's better to say I don't really know than make these big claims. But anyway, these are the side pack Australian drones. They can carry a warhead of 3 to 5 kilograms, which is actually fairly significant. So that's double what you'd see from the from those warheads carried on the first-person view drones that are taking out mechanized equipment by the dozen on the front lines. So they carry sort of 2.5 kilograms, and that's your RPG-7 warhead. From the rocket-propelled grenade launchers. They take them off the launchers and put them on the first-person view drones and fly them into a tank, and that can take out a tank, right, if it hits in the right place. Well, if you've got now double the warhead capacity on, or the explosives capacity on board these drones, and you're hitting a fourth generation fighter, then you can probably do some fairly decent damage to that. So if 13 of these got through out of 16, then you can imagine there would be quite a lot of damage that they could do. Okay. Trent Telenko says about that one about. Oh no, sorry. Then this is a different story. Okay, and I say story. Again, it's trying to confirm the truth of these claims. In another crazy story, in the vicinity of Robotna, 52 Russian soldiers beat the commander and surrendered with him to the armed forces of Ukraine. It all started with the mobs mobilized soldiers complaining about the lack of food and ammunition, after which things spiraled out of control. So this is a claim that 52 soldiers surrendered with their commander in Robotna, and Trent Telenko says that there's every possibility you're going to see more of this as the counteroffensive expands its reach. Right. Russia strikes with cluster and incendiary ammunition in Uruzhany here. So there's footage. We've seen incendiary munitions used, extensively in Kherson, above the city there. We've seen them used in Bakhmut as well, and a number of other places. Now we're seeing it used defensively by the Russians, and cluster munitions apparently, as you can see there, in Uruzhany, by the Mokry River here. That is not surprising. In fact, if anything, it's surprising that we haven't seen that already. But yeah, incendiary munitions being used by the Russians defensively there. Okay, this is potentially Russia on fire. It's quite significant fire by the looks of it in Berdyansk, which is in the occupied regions of Ukraine on the Azov Sea coast. Now, Tim White says it's a fire that doesn't initially seem to be related to the war, but further investigation is probably needed, not least because of the colour of the smoke. It's said that the fire is a local business. Who knows? I don't know. It kind of looks like it could be an explosion as well. Now, I say that because other people are claiming it is a hit. Bavovna is explosion, Berdyansk. So this is what Max 23 here is potentially claiming is a distance hit, but I don't know that is true. In fact, sometimes you have to take some of his claims with a pinch of salt as well, and we'll come on to that in a bit. Okay, overnight 6 missiles were fired into Ukraine from Russia, so 4 caliber and 2 Kh-59. Both Kh-59s and 2 of the calibers were shot down. It appears that a civilian facility in Poltava region was hit. That's according to the Ukrainians. Of course, we never quite know what is hit by the Russians. The Ukrainians keep stum about them, for OPSEC and PSYOPs and controlling the narrative reasons. You fully understand that, but yeah, there's quite often that the Russians do actually hit significant targets, but we just don't know that is the case. On the night of the 28th of August, Ukrainian air defense shot down 4 of 6 Russian missiles. So 2 missiles hit an industrial facility in Mirorod district, Poltava Oblast, killing 2 and injuring 5. So that's gone from a civilian facility. I guess industrial facilities are civilian rather than military. So yeah, okay. So that seems to cohere as far as what they're saying, but did it hit a military facility at all? It's hard to confirm these claims, right, or disconfirm them. Russia claims 2 drones were shot down over Bryansk Oblast, so the Ukrainians are still firing drones into Russian territory. On it last night, the Russian MOD claimed that 2 drones were shot down over Bryansk, and Moscow's mayor said another was destroyed near the capital. Right, a bit of detail on that. So the drone shot down in Moscow last night was 5 kilometers from a Moscow helicopter plant at Lyubertsy. Whether that was the intended target, I don't know. The plant reportedly deals with the introduction of new models and modifications of Mi helicopters into mass production, as well as supporting the operation of civilian and military helicopters. So there is, as you can see, significant explosion. Whether that's as a result of air defense or not, I don't know. I mean, this, I think, is a pretty significant sound that we hear here. And It's the sound of a low-firing drone. Now that's a pretty big. I know it's not very loud. That it's just it's someone's CCTV camera. But the claim here is that's air defense, but I don't hear any air defense. It kind of sounds like a drone flying into its target. There's no air defense. There's no shots. There's no sound of a missile being shot. But who knows? Maybe the missile was shot before that. The video started, and you just don't hear the missile, and it takes out that drone. But who knows? Anyway, that's sort of 5 kilometers from that. Here's another 5 kilometers from that helicopter factory. Again, you just hear an explosion. Don't know if it is actually shot down or what. Then Murmansk in Russia. There's something's exploded. Something's on fire. I don't know if that's a hit or Russia on fire. But things, when you have this sort of activity consistently happening in different places around Russia, like if something like this happened in, like I keep saying, in the UK, and if you had a fire that big in a main town in the UK, that would be massive news for weeks and weeks in the UK. However, that sort of thing is happening every day in multiple places around Russia. Now, to go back to occupied territories in Ukraine, Zaporizhia region, we have Melitopol and Akimivka being hit near, so that's Tokmak, and down to the west of Melitopol being hit probably by HIMARS, although Tokmak can be hit by artillery these days. It's that close to the front line. Right, let's go on to other bits and pieces. We're going to start with this. So US assessments of the offensive are not driven by eagerness to wind up aid, rather than look for a quick diplomatic exit ramp. Most US officials appear more convinced than ever the need to stand fast with Kyiv. The US cannot be seen to abandon its ally. Now, I don't know whether there's just a lot of rhetoric now coming out because people have seen a lot of claims in the Washington Post and the New York Times and other mainstream media outlets from US officials, unnamed officials, that are being fairly negative, and there's a bit of pushback against that, and people say no, we're not. It's not that we're going towards wanting some appeasement or diplomatic end. Is that we need more than ever to stand by the Ukrainians. So to continue to quote from the article, this is in the Washington Post: how the US sees Ukraine's push: no stalemate, but no breakthrough out of either. That starting point, although arguably they're having a breakthrough now, the starting point in this assessment, says Shashank Joshi, quoting from the article, is that Ukrainian forces aren't likely to reach the Black Sea and cut off Russia's land route to Crimea before winter sets in, as they had hoped. US officials still think the Ukrainians can significantly breach Russian positions this year. Absolutely. All they need to do is get halfway there and then put that whole area under fire control. American commanders have long believed that the Ukrainians, and this I found pretty interesting, waste artillery fire in crushing barrages that emulate Soviet tactics. By one US estimate, the Ukrainians have fired 2 million rounds of 155mm ammunition since the war began, nearly exhausting Western stockpiles. Pentagon officials have also urged Ukraine to rely less. Now, this has been met with massive pushback with the sorts of sources I dip into. So this is a claim from Pentagon officials that A, makes you really wonder who these officials are, B, whether it's real at all, and C, what are they on? Just what are you on? Anyway, Pentagon officials have urged Ukraine to rely less on drones for battlefield awareness and more on ground reconnaissance forces, which can assess Russian positions better. They have pressed Kyiv to give junior officers more latitude to exploit opportunities. Right, people have gone nuts over this. Phillips O'Brien says, after the last 2 weeks, I think Pentagon anonymous sources need a proper holiday, not just a long weekend, but 2 weeks at the beach. No phone would be better for everyone. Tatarigami here says, that, of this quote, Pentagon officials have urged Ukraine to rely less on drones for battlefield awareness and more on ground reconnaissance forces that can assess Russian positions better. He says, I came across an article today, blah, 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 that discusses a counteroffensive. I usually refrain from criticizing leaks, recognizing the importance of journalistic work. Nevertheless, in light of the statement in this article, I want to provide some counterpoints. This is one of a whole handful of people going at this. It is challenging to ascertain the credibility of the official giving the commentary. It remains unclear whether the statement accurately reflects a Pentagon stance, if it was a journalist's interpretation of an official's words, or it was an actual statement. Should we accept this statement at face value, it is arguably one of the worst statements I've encountered recently. This statement raises doubts regarding the authenticity of the statement itself. Drones play a pivotal role in minimizing the risk to service members' lives. The majority of front lines are heavily mined and under constant surveillance by drones, maximizing the risk of reconnaissance missions. Opting to jeopardize human lives over the loss of a drone not only lacks compassion, but is also imprudent and devoid of logical rationale. Ouch. Whether it's just an inaccurate reporting or an unreliable source, I hope that this statement is a misrepresentation of someone's remarks rather than the actual viewpoint originating from within the Pentagon. This argument just doesn't hold water. Loads of people pointing out that, holy cow, right? First of all, drone reconnaissance is brilliant. Like, the quality of some of the footage is insanely good. Like, if you're talking about resolution of some of these, but it gives you a bird's eye view in a way that you can't get if you're a person on the ground. You can't see past a bunch of trees. How useful is it to have someone walking through a minefield to get a bit of reconnaissance, getting blown up and saying, well, I couldn't see past a tree line anyway? Just what are you thinking? Like, it's not World War One. Yes, I'm sure you might occasionally have some kind of minor advantage where you can see things from the ground level and get an understanding of things that you wouldn't be able to get from drones. But if you can have multiple drones having views from different angles on Russian positions unhindered, or possibly they get shot down, but you lose a drone and not a human life, then I don't know. It's just, yeah, rant mode there. Anyway, so I agree with the criticisms of this unnamed source, Pentagon officials. Like, Ukrainian President Zelensky said in an interview that he wants to equate corruption with high treason during martial law. I think this is really important. Corruption is a problem in Ukraine. Everyone knows this. They are trying very hard to do something about it, as they have been before the outbreak of this iteration of the war. They are moving up the transparency index rather than, Russia, that appears to be kind of not moving up the index. So they are putting things in place and improving. And they're even trying to do this during a war, which is particularly difficult. Now, he is sacking a load of people that are seemingly corrupt and doing these things, but I think it's really important to say that, look, in war, if we're on a war footing, corruption is doubly bad. Like, corruption is bad enough in peacetime, right? But here, this kind of corruption can cost people lives. Like, if you're getting tourniquets to the front line that are bought off some cheap Chinese tourniquets that are breaking, and there's some kind of corruption in the procurement that means that that's the case and they aren't being checked, and then someone's making some money out of that, then that is costing people lives, and so therefore that should be seen as kind of high treason. And I do get that. So I think this kind of approach is correct, and yeah, I think corruption in wartime is doubly bad. Okay. Andrei Yusov, a spokesman for the main director of intelligence, said that the head of the Ukrainian intelligence, Kirilo Budanov, so here's so many cool memes of this guy, has survived more than 10 assassination attempts since 2014. I reckon this is okay. Zelensky is going to be target number one for the Russians, really, but probably this guy's either number two or maybe number one himself. Like, he is. Yeah, I'm sure the Russians absolutely hate this guy. Right, last thing I'm going to say. So that's the end of the video. Thank you. I've been meaning to do this for a long time. So Maria Veshchanova often comments on my threads below. She's got her own channel reporting on the war in Ukraine. Check it out. She has loads of videos. She's growing, 600 subscribers. She's, pro-Ukrainian, and for obvious reasons, go and check her out. I promised to give her a big up. So there you go, Maria. Thank you for hanging out on my channel sometimes and putting some comments in there. Really appreciate that. Anyway, everyone, take care. Please like, subscribe, and share. Really appreciate your support. I will try my best to get you content today, but no promises. We have lots of people coming around, and food to eat and merriment to be had. Take care. Speak to you very soon in the second part. Toodle pips.